Morning. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank the organizers for organizing this and for inviting me to come from Brazil to moderate this session. And I feel I've been living there for more than 40 years. I'm originally from Massachusetts, but when I come back to the States, I always feel like a foreigner. So if I start getting up and dancing or something, you'll understand, right? Oh, I did that last night. I forgot. Anyway, just briefly, full circle, my not-for-profit startup is based here in the US, and we're setting up an association in Brazil. And God willing and funding willing, it will be a digital platform to bring together the African diaspora in one virtual space where they can learn about themselves and their roots and find each other and create and collaborate and make music together. And I could go on and on. If you want to know more, find me later, because the main thing is to hear from our guests. We have here right next to me Eric Lewis from Truist Bank, Dr. Kim Henderson from Morgan Stanley, and Eric Fishman from Builders. And I'm wearing his incredible pin, which he has more of. The design is gorgeous. And the work they all do is really interesting, and I'm going to ask them to each introduce themselves to you before we start.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you're enjoying the conference. This is my first time here, and it's just been an absolute pleasure. Again, my name is Eric Lewis. I have been with Truist Bank for 21 years, and I am extremely proud and blessed to serve as the head of small business banking for Truist. And how we define small business is clients all the way up to $10 million in annual sales revenue. And I'm in charge of our go-to-market strategy with our fantastic teammates in providing practical advice, full-scale capabilities, and caring partnerships. And that word care is extremely important to us. Everything that we do is based on a foundation of care. So again, thanks for being with us this morning.
Hi, good morning. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Kim Henderson. I am a physician. I practiced for many, many years at Mount Sinai in the emergency department. I am now at Morgan Stanley, and I know what you're thinking, right? What does a doctor do rattling around an investment bank all day? So we'll talk about that a little later. But I came to the firm during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic to help with the response. And you know, the very interesting thing we learned during the pandemic is that everybody had questions about the pandemic. Not just people who worked at Morgan Stanley, but our clients had questions too. So as the pandemic began to turn the corner, I moved from an internal role to an external role to help our clients with all of their health and wellness concerns. So now I sit in the family office helping with health and wellness concerns across our client base. So very nice to meet you.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Tom Fishman. I'm the CEO of the Builders Movement, which is the country's largest community dedicated to overcoming toxic polarization and solving our toughest problems together. And we use, specifically, amongst other tools, media and technology as a pathway to creating deeper connection. It's possible, believe it or not. We'll probably talk a little bit about that today. And prior to that, had a trajectory that took me from legacy media. I was at Viacom, leading digital marketing and social media at MTV for a long time. At the advent of social media, I remember clearly a time when it was fun. I was there. I'm telling you, it happened. And after that was at Facebook for a couple years, and then led an interactive video company as the general manager for a while. So did a couple tours in media and tech, and now I'm trying to use those dark arts for the forces of good. So really a pleasure to be here with you all and with you all this morning. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Tom. So the thing that we're mostly going to be talking about is how to recreate something we've lost over the last 20 years or so, which is a sense of community, a sense of belonging, and how do we do this now that the world has become so virtual. And my guests here are doing amazing work in this area and have some interesting ideas. And at the end of our session, we'd love to hear questions from you as well. because it's all about, trying to find solutions together, right? So my first question for each of you is, what is your biggest challenge now? The situation is quite difficult. We are so polarized. And how has that challenge changed over time? Eric?
Sure, I'll start and answer this in maybe three different ways. And so I'll start again with a financial lens, clearly working at a bank. You think about the ever-changing landscape and how fast things move from a technological standpoint and a client standard standpoint. Our clients, really any clients, all of you, we have to meet people where they are. So whether you are a everyday person, small business owner, what have you, how you interact changes so much. The example I continue to think about is, think about 10 years ago. If you interacted at a lot of companies, the question you would say, oh, I can do this on my phone, that's pretty cool. Now it's, how come I can't do this on my phone? And so you think about that evolution and what we have to do, especially as a bank and interacting with our clients. And so we take a multi-channel approach with that, and you have to do that consistently and you have to execute. And so that means using our physical locations, and they have to be up to standard and modernized. We have to have all of the digital capabilities, using the example that I just mentioned. We need to have virtual teammates on call, so when clients or individuals want to have that human touch along with it, that has to be there. And as I said, those client standards of servicing are always up there. People always reference Chick-fil-A as kind of the high bar when it comes to fast food and franchise, because it's consistent wherever you go. So whether it's digital or virtual or in person, you have to keep up with that standard. So that's a challenge that we're eager to fight, but we have to. The second challenge, I would say, I kind of call the sweet spot challenge. And for us, it's the sweet spot of finding what our clients desire, operating with excellence, with technological feasibility. There's a sweet spot there, and it is hard to time up that sweet spot. You can have the best technology in the world, but if you're not solving for what the clients are asking for, it does not matter. You can operate with ultimate excellence. If you're not operating towards what the clients are asking for, it does not matter. And the timing of that is extremely difficult, especially in, as I mentioned, an evolving technological space and all of the challenges that go in with just basically operating. You think about Truist, we're the 7th largest bank in the country. Just under 50,000 teammates. We all have to be one team. We talk about that quite a bit, and trying to take care of the needs of our communities. And so that's a challenge. And then lastly, I would say banks can be notoriously siloed regardless of what bank you're working with. So I'm sure a lot of you operate in this manner. You have a personal mortgage. You may be a small business owner as well. You may have an investment portfolio. You have 529s for your kids. And one of my favorite quotes is, 2 things can be true at the same time. So all of those things are true at the same time. Historically, banks have been very siloed and only internally looked at each of those silos instead of making sure we're talking to our clients and our communities and treating all of that as one holistic experience. And the example I always use is kind of a horror story of, it wasn't us, but another bank I'm not going to name, of a small business owner had been a small business owner in a bank for about 15 years, wanted to get a personal mortgage, walked into a bank branch, and that bank pretended they just hadn't done any business with them at all, ever. Speaking to that siloed effect. So the challenge is, internally, we have to make sure that all of our teammates are talking to one another from a system standpoint, from a structural standpoint, to bring that sense of belonging to our clients.
Thank you. I think de-siloing is what so much of what we're all doing is about, because when we went from broadcasting to narrowcasting, and I remember that in the 80s, we had no idea just how narrow it was all going to get. Dr. Henderson, what would you like to say about your challenges?
Yeah, my challenges are exactly the same as it was when I was practicing medicine, because clients, even though they're clients at Morgan Stanley, clients are people too. And I have huge challenges helping people understand that health and wellness matters, right? Because sometimes people forget that when they're uber focused on their business or their finances. But one bad diagnosis will bring everything very sharply into vision, right? That the thing that's really important is not the report you get back from your alternative investments or, any of that. It's that bad reading you get after that annual mammogram that really will turn everything upside down. And then what happens? So now it's a fire drill and people are lost. And it really doesn't matter how many zeros you have after your bank account when you're the recipient of the bad mammogram or you're the recipient of a test that you weren't expecting. Everybody needs help. And the challenge with helping people who are not used to being sick or not used to navigating the medical system is that they think it's going to be as nice and neat and orderly as going into Morgan Stanley and having a conversation with their financial advisor. And it's not, right? You need to see a specialist. They make you wait on hold. You need an appointment to see what's wrong with you. They don't have time for 4 months. So it's about helping people understand and navigate this system, because healthcare, no matter, and I want to make sure I drive this point home, healthcare, no matter how much money you have, is broken in this country. And if you do not know how to navigate it, throwing money at it is not going to make it much better. So I'd say that my day in and day out challenge that comes in 30-minute slivers is helping our clients navigate a very broken system as it relates to physical health, as it definitely relates to mental health, because the challenges are squared in the mental health arena, especially as it relates to their children, and finally their parents, right? Because many of these people that we deal with are living the sandwich generation. They're trying to take care of children with this hand. They're trying to take care of their parents with this hand and run their businesses or do everything else they're doing. And I'm here to tell you, it's not easy at any price point.
It's so interesting. And zooming out, I think what we work on is a little bit more at the societal level, where we're experiencing a different kind of a sickness and a different kind of a virus, what Senator Warnock yesterday morning called a spiritual sickness, but that is one of a contagion of us versus them thinking, of absolutist, binary, good versus evil. This is not healthy debate, this is not civic discourse, this is not a recipe for solving problems, and that contagion applies incredible pressure, not only in our businesses and our workplaces, where we're meant to collaborate and solve problems all the time, but in our communities, in our living rooms, and in our society. Now, it's a problem that is both real and perceived, which makes it all the more complex. The real problem historically, right? If we look back at our Congress and bipartisanship in our Congress, there are amazing charts demonstrating this, that through maybe the 80s, there was certainly by today's standards, an incredible amount of bipartisan problem solving, bipartisan legislation, and as the sort of ecosystem of the media and political strategy, and you throw in the primary system and the incentives there, we don't have time to get into that. The incentives are such that our politicians are increasingly inclined to pander to the most entrenched, the most extreme, and the most ideologically inflexible parts of their bases. Now add on to that a media revolution in technology where our modes of communication are extremely brief, extremely fast, and rewarded for the amount of likes, comments, and shares they get. Not a recipe for nuance, to say the least. I'm sure we all are experiencing that in our feeds and the way that those two ecosystems interplay, where our elected leaders are now more incentivized to be social media stars rather than constructive problem solvers so that they can raise money and get reelected is incredibly unhealthy. Now, those are real problems. The perceived part of the problem, and this is work that Builder shows day in, day out, not only in the community that we continue to build and lead, but in research that we've done, we have a lot more in common than we think. We ran a poll to show that Democrats and Republicans, 9 out of 10 on both sides of the aisle, we left the independents out of this one, sorry guys if you're in the audience, agree on core American values, that a government should be representative of its people, that a government should be accountable to its people, that we should learn from the past to solve the future's problems, that the rule of law should be fairly and equally applied. These are things we all agree on. Yet, our perception is that the other side, quote unquote, only 30% of them agree with that, right? An enormous perception gap that leads to a crisis of sort of mutual understanding, and then we are physically increasingly sorted from each other as we move into neighborhoods of people who look and think more like we do. We are digitally isolated from each other. And unfortunately, the perception of being more divided than we are is exacerbated by the isolation. Toss in a global pandemic and you have a recipe for the atrophy of America's cooperative problem-solving muscle. And that's what we're looking to solve.
So glad you are. Somebody's got to do it, right? Okay, now I'm going to ask a question to each of the panelists. We're not ready quite yet for questions from the audience, but I hope we'll have time for that. And I'm going to read from my phone because I managed to make some very complicated questions. So, Eric, how does financial inclusion feed community and a sense of belonging? Do your clients become part of a network that they recognize and utilize? Do they gain agency and then act to connect and help make the world a better place?
No, it's a wonderful question, and so 3 E's come to mind, when we were chatting about this, and I think about empowerment via education that leads to economic freedom. And shout out to Dr. Luntz last night. If any of you saw his outstanding and impactful presentation, I had a different word after economic until I heard him, and I changed it to economic freedom. So I stole it from him, but I'm giving him credit. And plus, I have a microphone, so I'm going to do a small commercial for all of small business. So walk with me. I promise this will come full circle. So there are 33 million small businesses in this country. That makes up well over 95% of all business in this country. 67 cents of every dollar spent at a small business stays within the local community. 80% of all of those small businesses are just one person. So you're thinking just the sole prop is one person. I love calling it those kitchen table stories, those passion projects. They started on a patio somewhere. But the remaining 20% of those small businesses employ a lot of people, over 61 million jobs created by just 20% of all those small businesses. So you think about the economic impact that small businesses have via small business owners and the people that work for them. So they're all in the context of the greater community. So it is extremely important to empower these individuals. Because I think, again, it's confidence. I think of empower as confidence. Education is information. You combine all that, and that brings economic freedom. And we have a responsibility with our partnerships, like with Operation Hope, and we have a responsibility in enabling our teammates to live our purpose. The truest purpose is to inspire and build better communities, and that speaks to the question of creating that sense of agency. As I think about, I mentioned our physical branches and our locations and where I think the financial industry is going. You're going to see more physical locations turning into financial health centers and incubators instead of places where you're just doing basic transactions. Those transactions need to be automated. They need to be easy. We have to educate people in the community to self-serve so our teammates can use their expertise and provide strategic advice. Another quote that I heard a couple of years ago that always stuck with me is that robots are not here to replace people. Robots are here to replace the robots in people. And so another analogy I think about is, and maybe I'll show my age a little bit here. Remember growing up, we didn't have smartphones. I remembered all my friends' phone numbers. I still remember my phone number, 689-2739. I remember, growing up, I remember my phone number. I don't have to do that anymore. I think I know my phone number, my wife's number, my mom's number. That might be about it. But I'm using that brain power for other things. And so you think about where we are, where our communities need to be. That's part of the entire process. So again, empowerment, education, leading to economic freedom, and that sense of belonging. And we know the stress, and I know, Dr. Henderson, you're going to talk about some of these things that come about when your financial hygiene isn't up to par. Yes. The mental stress that it can cause. We've all been there. And so, again, we have a responsibility to help that change.
Thank you so much. That's really impressive. And I myself, as an older person, find that, you try to remember a movie, you can't remember the actor's name, and just throw something in the search engine and you get it. So, yeah, I do hope I'm using my brain to do some other things as well. Dr. Henderson, does your holistic approach to mental and physical health help your clients to feel part of something bigger? Do they expand their social and economic bubbles, take part in exchanges with people unlike themselves, undergo personal growth?
Yeah, it's a great question because there's a big misconception that if you have a similar bank account, then you're a similar person. And these clients, they couldn't be more different, right? They're really not defined by their accounts. They're very unique, interesting people. And the way I engage with them is about their health holistically. And I like the definition of health that the World Health Organization uses, right? So they define health as the combination of physical health, mental health, and societal health, not merely the absence of disease. Many people think that if you pick up the little amber vial at the pharmacy and you take your pills and you see your doctor once a year, I'm healthy, right? I've done it. I've done the things that make me healthy. And that, there is a place for that, but it really truly is the lowest bar. American healthcare, and I am a product of American healthcare, right? I went to school in DC and trained there and practiced in New York. I am American healthcare. But American healthcare puts a lot more focus on sick care as opposed to well care, right? And let me tell you why, since we're all friends here and the doors are closed, right? The issue is a doctor knows how to charge and get paid by an insurance company for a patient that is sick, right? There are ICD-9 codes, there's billing, like there is a way to quantify that. There is a way to bill for that. I have a little brother, I have a 50-year-old brother, whatever. He's an orthopedic surgeon, and in the fee-for-service model in which most of us sit, even now, if he replaces one knee, he gets $1. He replaces two knees, he gets $2. Replaces three knees, he gets $3. There are no dollars for keeping the knees healthy. There's no way to do it. So we're in sick care, not health care. So how do we try to adjust for that when I talk to the clients at Morgan? So I spend a lot of time probably sounding like their grandmother, right? Because these are smart people and they want to know what's new. What's new? What should I be doing that's new? What can I do that's new? And they want to talk about GLP-1s and they want to talk about this and that. And, the guy who spends $2 million to live forever, like they're really into what's new. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. How much water did you drink today? Yeah, I ask it all the time. And this is the same answer I get. No one wants to talk about that, right? Young man, how much water do you drink today? Okay. Do you know how much water you're supposed to drink in a day? Yeah, well, that's true. So most of us don't drink enough water, and I know what you're thinking, like, what's she up there babbling about water? Believe it or not, most of the complaints that people will come and see me in the emergency room for, headaches, abdominal pain, chest pain, weakness, dizziness, you can track that right back to not drinking the amount of water you're supposed to drink a day, right? You're supposed to drink 8 ounce glasses of water a day to remain optimally hydrated. Well, why is that important? Yeah, no one's talking about that, right? So this is exactly the conversation I have in 30-minute slivers for 10 hours a day. So we talk about that for a little bit, and then people will go and get their Stanley buckets, and then they drink, pretend to drink the water. So then we continue the conversation, and I'm very stressed. I'm this, I'm that. What can I take for my stress? What's the best? Is it Ambien? What's the best in the little amber vial? Because we're creatures of amber vial. What can I do to fix my stress? And then I'll ask, how much exercise did you get today? And I get the same answer, right? Same answer I'm getting right now. The lovely lady in the beautiful, beautiful purple jacket, how much exercise did you get today? Okay. Okay. So how much exercise are we supposed to get? So the CDC recommends that adults get at least 90 minutes of moderate exercise a week. Yeah, but it's much easier to look for the solution to the problem than think about the things that your grandmother always told you, right? How's your sleep? Yeah. So back to my colleague's point earlier, we know as a matter of fact at Morgan Stanley, because we've looked at it, people who are not in control or not comfortable with their financial profile will lose up to 200 hours of sleep a year. 200 hours. That's a lot of sleep, right? It's a lot of sleep. So how do we fix these problems, right? It's very easy to look for external solutions, right? I can get this prescription from this doctor, I can go here, but to look within is a much harder thing to do. And since we're talking about small business, we're talking about finances, we know that one of the struggles with small businesses is their finances. It's something that they worry about, they fret about. So what my colleagues will ask, and I think it's always a good question because we do the same thing in medicine, right? When you have a doctor, you're supposed to have a medical plan. You review this plan with the doctor, you talk about your plan, you adjust it as necessary. How's your financial plan? Because it's not a plan until you write that down, right? People go, oh yeah, I have a plan. Yeah, show me. It's really very cathartic. It's an exercise. It's the journey. It's not what you end up with on the paper. It's going through the process of writing it down. Just like what I'm talking about from the physical and mental standpoint, because I'm telling you, if you show me a person with a mental health problem, I will show you that same person with a physical health problem. You need to reduce it to writing so you understand where you are and where you're going. And it's the same in the financial arena. If you do not plan your work, then honestly, you're planning to fail. So.
I guess it's not a coincidence that wealth and health rhyme.
Yes, that's right.
And it's super interesting what you've been saying. I've been thinking about Brazil as you speak, and the situation there is quite similar, although there is a public health system. And in addition to all of that, and private responses to health issues, there are Afro-Brazilian religions, and come up and ask me about that later if you're interested, which help people with their mental and physical health. in their ceremonies and the music. It's a very interesting new.
I should have been a doctor in Brazil.
Yeah, you got to come back. Yeah, anyone want to come visit? Let me know. I'm not a travel agent, but I'd love to see you there. Tom, what is key to keeping a human scale in your work, yet relying on tech? Once people perceive common ground with people unlike themselves, what do they do to make the world a better place?
Yeah, it's a great set of questions. Firstly, I just want to say 961-3788, Eric. That's my phone number when I was a kid. People who just came in like, what? The key to keeping a human scale in our technological spaces and our social platforms is, I think, quite similar to what we seek to practice in person. We just have to do it with great intentionality, and it's a new technology, right? We're not used to it. It's a new technology where we don't have guardrails, we don't have expectations. Again, cars didn't have seatbelts until 1965. Cigarette packs didn't have Surgeon General's warnings when they first came out. We don't know what the seatbelts and Surgeon General's warnings are necessarily for our social platforms. What we do know is that adopting a builder's mindset is a great start. And that is to strive to be a flexible, independent thinker, decouple from the party lines, from the talking points, right? And be a critical thinker. To be a dedicated and constructive problem solver, and to recognize the dignity of all people. And that sounds nice, but you might be asked, well, how do you do that, right? Independent thinking, constructive problem solving, strive to recognize the dignity of all people. And I loved your 3 E's, Eric, and I'm going to raise you 4 C's, right? Curiosity, compassion, courage, and creativity. The curiosity to seek out, actively seek them out, perspectives that are different than yours, so you can poke holes in your own beliefs, make them stronger, or evolve them. Compassion for people who have landed on different value systems than yours, knowing that they've led different lives, had different experiences, and that those are valid, as frustrating as they may be. The courage to hold space for those people and to be in contact with them, yes, digitally, also in person, ideally, right? It's a social scientific theory called the contact theory, right? It's difficult to hate up close. And the creativity, and this is a good segue into the next question that you asked, is what can we do once we find that common ground? The creativity to work together to solve our toughest problems. This room knows this, right? That the studies show over and over again that a diversity of perspective leads to the most creative and most effective solutions to problems. We know this in business, we know this in our communities, and diversity in its broadest forms. Demographic diversity, economic diversity, racial diversity, ideological diversity. No one party, no one group has a trademark or a patent on problem solving. Our best problems, our best solutions to problems are the ones that we solve cooperatively and solve together. And when we say the other side is evil, to even entertain working together with them is a betrayal of part of my identity, you cut off a pathway to an enormous reservoir of problem solving, and we need that cooperative problem solving. We need it to fill the potholes on Main Street. We need it to pivot our businesses and to figure out the solutions to existential challenges that our generation and the next generations are going to face: ecological challenges, political challenges, social challenges, technological challenges. So if we don't allow ourselves the permission to solve problems together, what chance do we have? The 4 C's is the pathway to do it. Strive every day to practicing curiosity, compassion, courage, and creativity. We don't use our platforms intentionally, but if you go into using them with that in mind, you will find that the inclination to clap back, right? Put an angry comment, share something without reading it. I do that, right? I've done it. We all do that. It's too fast. It's too easy, right? We need intentionality. We need our own internally recognized Surgeon General's warnings on how to use these platforms for good.
Thank you so much. This is my last question, so get ready with yours and try to be brief. You have been. I'm not criticizing you. Before coming here, I read an article which I would recommend to everybody in the Atlantic magazine, and the word Babel is in the title, as in Tower of Babel. Oh, only 10 minutes left. Oh my God. Ah. Anyway, the author suggested some reforms, some things we can do, and I'd like to know from our guests, very briefly indeed, since we only have 10 minutes, and I'd like to take at least one question. What reforms do you suggest or support, or support, so that we can look back at the 2020s and say, wow, we were so lost in those early days?
Well, I'll be fast. And public policy is not my area of expertise, so I'll keep it very high level. Anything we can do to get personal financial management and everyday technical skills training to our kids earlier, period. I didn't truly understand taxes until I got my first paycheck, and I said, ooh, I need to reevaluate my budget. Yeah. I didn't know how to change a tire until my mid-20s, until I finally got a flat. Little simple things like that. Shame on me for not knowing how. But I'm being open and honest. So those simple things, and these are things we do with our kids, especially around the holidays. They start seeing Amazon boxes with new games that teach about financial management, not just basic Monopoly in life. We all played that growing up, but there's so many other things that are fun to teach kids about. And again, trying to teach those everyday things. But I think that should be more in schools to get our kids prepared.
Yeah, I mean, if I could change one thing, if I had a magic wand instead of this mic, I would want to instill in us, and especially in our children, that your health is your own, right? There's no doctor that knows your body better than you know your body. There are specialists out there that have gone to school for a very long time, but you are really in charge of yourself. Do not be a passive patient. Nothing good happens to passive patients. Take your doctor to task. If you don't understand what she's telling you, ask a question. And if you don't understand again, or if your doctor's not listening to you, come and talk to me and I'll get you another doctor. Because this is not about the doctor. This is about you. And we need to prioritize our health as Black people because we are the most likely to get deferred, delayed care, incomplete care, incorrect care. And the only way we're going to make a difference is if you hold the provider to task and you stand up for yourself.
I'm going to continue on the theme of education. Maybe unsurprisingly, what I'm talking about in the 4 C's, curiosity, compassion, courage, and creativity, as much as they are values, they are skills. And you get better at them with practice, and the earlier you start practicing, the better off you'll be. These are civic skills. These are problem-solving skills. And we find in curricula where we seek to teach these at all levels, from K-12 into higher ed, when we practice them, we get better. These are the skills needed to solve the toughest problems that face us today and for us to solve them cooperatively. So the extent to which we can start to build these skills into our curricula, not just in schools, but these principles into our houses of worship, into all aspects of society, they are crucial pillars for cooperative problem solving across lines of difference.
Thanks so much. And do we have any questions?
Yeah, I guess I could start. Thank you for joining us today, and that's a great question. When you think about food deserts, there's also technological deserts, and so I could probably speak for other banks, but just over and above ours. And I mentioned this earlier about the importance of the physical branch locations and how they are evolving, and they need to be hubs and places for people to access Wi-Fi, have spaces and places for the community to come together and connect and share information. And so I love to see our SBA representatives, because it's a huge priority for us to make sure access to capital is everywhere that it needs to be. And a big part of that is making sure that the small business owners in the communities connect with one another and can walk that path together. Especially with the paperwork and things that come involved, in making sure that people stay confident and can help each other in getting all of the forms and applications together so that access to capital can be as easy as possible.
Thanks, Eric. One last question. Sorry, it's not
Sure.
going to be time for any more, but we can talk to each other outside. I know we have to clear the room.
Rodney Bolden, Morgan Stanley. Quick question. The panel's about the future of community and connection, and I know we talked a lot about social media connection and community, but how about the workplace community? And so my question is, Gallup last week found that the level of employee detachment from their workplace is at its highest level that it's ever been. And detached employees are less productive, they're more likely to leave. We have a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners here. What piece of advice would you give to them to better engage their employees so that they reattach to the community of work?
Tom, I think that's for you.
What a good question. I'll take it. I can't help but take it from the perspective of remote work as a phenomenon that seems like, at least to some degree, is here to stay, but it applies. Applies, I think, in general. And the best advice I have is that connection, true connection, like it does in our friendships, in our relationships, in our marriages, it takes work. It takes intentionality. You set aside the time for connection. It's, I think that I have again, this is maybe my experience, but I suspect a lot of us share it, the sort of pre-pandemic sense of what work was like. And connection seemed to happen incidentally, right? It was just sort of a part of the water cooler. And even for those of us back in office now, full-time or hybrid, something feels like it's changed a little bit, and that might be a part of rebuilding a collective muscle. It's not just one for problem solving, but it's one for connecting. And I know I can speak for myself here. I don't know if you all feel this, especially those hybrid workers or remote workers. I feel fatigued sometimes from connecting with people in person. I forgot the processing of social cues, and and I'm like, is this natural? Am I doing what I usually do? It's like, and it's it is a muscle, and it needs exercise. It needs strengthening. So intentionality, setting aside time to connect and doing it with intention, would be my advice. Just do the work.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, I think that's right. I think we've become afraid of each other. Like, it's okay to go to somebody and be like, "Are you okay? How are you doing today?" When's the last time you've asked one of your colleagues, friends, close, "Are you okay?" But people have a lot of trepidation, especially after being away from each other. "Oh, I don't know if it's proper if I ask her if I'm okay. Am I, violating some HR rule or covenant or whatever?" If you have a person that you work with or you don't work with, or you just know casually and they look upset or distraught, it is actually okay to be like, "Hey, everything all right? Do you need anything? Do you want to talk?" You'd probably be doing that person and yourself a whole lot of good.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the three of you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Julia.